Okay, so today I wanted to read a chapter or two out of Barry Long's book, The Origin of Man in the Universe. Origins of Man in the Universe. And this is a chapter called The Stationary Universe on page 191. And I may make some comments on it as well, possibly. But the point is that this is probably one of the most profound books that have ever been written for Western people. It touches on the deepest, truest explanation in words and even some images to map, as it were, or to depict and explain in very crude, because words are very crude ways, yet very elegantly, the origins of man in the universe and what you are and what it's all about. And this one is called Stationary Universe. He says, according to science, the Earth is moving through space at fantastic speed. It is set to move into new space around the Sun at 30 kilometers per second, forward with the Sun at 20 kilometers per second, and around the galaxy at 220 kilometers per second, all at the same time. But on a cosmic scale as great as the Dragonic transverse, bearing in mind that reality is totality, and the greater the totality observed, the more the reality, the Earth is motionless. In fact, the motion of all heavenly bodies is due to the oscillation of our observing intelligence, and not to any real movement of those bodies. From the point of view of mind, the original still reality, the universe is motionless and has been since the instant it manifested as the sensory representation of the intellect. Only on the sensory side of the intellect is there movement or evolution of objects in time. This is where we live in this physical universe, or this physical projection in the sense. Then we continue. The intellect has never moved and never been added to or distracted from since the Big Bang that accompanied this emergence. When we observe it in our heads, it is the same as it always has been and always will be. This is the still empty space of silent black, the screen of the intellect. Any apparent movement or change is due to the unsteady state of our evolving intelligence as spatial beings. So all motion, space and time, therefore, is on that side, on this side. The intellect is the stationary bridge between the universe and infinite mind. Intelligence, evolving out of matter and life on the universe side of the intellect, eventually crosses it to return to the timeless and motionless original pre-existent state of mind. This is really the spiritual life, which is the returning from the identification with form, from this physical universe, this projective universe, this sensual universe on this side of the intellect, and going back into the stillness, into the silence, into the pre-existent state of mind. It is therefore intelligence, not the mind, which is evolving in time and space. Intelligence advances towards becoming pure, still mind by its understanding of change and motion through universal experience. So this is, again, what the whole purpose is of this mind-boggling maze that we live in. Nobody knows what it is. Is it a flat earth? Is it a round earth? Are we living in some kind of 3D projection? Is it a hologram? Is it created by a god or a this or a that? And everybody's trying to figure out why and what and how the world is created and where we're going and what the purpose of it is. But really, like it says here, intelligence in this respect can be described as an intellectual or reflective movement towards the understanding of a reality greater than that suggested by the senses. In other words, the purpose of life is to become the still, silent, ever-present, unmoving intelligence, or let's say the unmoving part of the intellect, to move through the black, grainy screen into the absolute silence and stillness of the unmoving intellect. And it says, intelligence acts to know, to sort, to uncover. By reaching out through the senses and reflecting its experience of the intellect, intelligence comes to know physical existence and to give it significance and value. And the ultimate significance is that there is no truth, absolute truth in it. It's an actuality and it's not reality. And therefore the absolute significance and value it finally should be given is that it needs no interest, because it's not the real one, it's not the highest, it's not the absolute. Intelligence, wherever it appears in the universe, oscillates at different frequencies. The swifter the oscillation, the higher the intelligence. Motion slows down significantly, and the perceiver sees through existence. This is where, when your intelligence is swifter, because you've been still and looking at pure perception and pure sensation, with pure perception at pure sensation, and you become still instead of all these thoughts running through the mind, that's where you start seeing through existence, which means you're looking at not just the object or the concepts that have been given to it, that have been ascribed to it by yourself or your religion or your society, but you see a truth much deeper behind it that's looking through existence. From the earthly point of view, the frequency of intelligence varies with the matter or the person or species it arises in, as well as with the relative reality of the symbol or object being observed. Right? So there's different levels of intelligence, and depending on the frequency or oscillation by which that intelligence is vibrating, depends on what they can and cannot see. That's why Jesus would say, or they say that Jesus said, don't cast pearls before swine. In other words, you can't, somebody can't see something that their intelligence is not vibrating at that oscillations. It's just impossible for you to try to convince people of things that they cannot see, because they're not vibrating there, so they only see what they see and they can't see through. For instance, if a person can keep his attention intelligently focused on the intellect, the dark screen of minimal experience in front of his awareness, the grainy screen, the dark blackness that you see when you close your eyes, he will eventually lose all sense of time and motion and enter into the infinitude of original still mind, whence he, time, motion, and all objects originate. This is real meditation, to focus on the blackness, the darkness, without thought, without emotion, without any objects, and then eventually lose all sense of time and motion and enter into the infinite original still mind, whence all time, motion, and all objects originate. He will remain in this state until his spatial, physical, or emotional self starts to exert its restlessness, which is its evolutionary need of motion, and will demand his intelligent participation in worldly affairs again. You see, this is where you see that people can only keep their attention on something for as long as they can, because to the degree that you're still or not, the degree that you're oscillating, by going to a faster oscillation, by being stiller, it's actually, you're becoming stiller, but at the same time it's getting out of the comfort zone. Real meditation takes you out of your acquainted area of thought and emotion and busyness with this side of the intellect, the objective side of the intellect. And so at some point the attention cannot be held there, because it's, let's say, it's comfortable, its point of comfort, its zone of comfort is where it is, and when you go out of that into a more still place, it takes an effort almost, it seems. That's why meditation and being still seems to take dedication and focus in the beginning, although there's nobody that should be doing it, because otherwise it would be the self again, the separate self doing it. But the point being, it takes a certain degree of stillness and focus and one-pointedness to know that you're actually pushing yourself through into that next level in a way, because staying where you are comfortably is not moving and evolving at all. Intelligence, in spite of its ability to detach itself and focus on the intellect, is bound by time to the matter or body it arises in. and must complete that particular evolutionary draconic life and death cycle. This has to do with some other chapters. You have to read that to see what he means with that. But the point is, we're going to continue here about the other part. All motion on the earth is due to the relative slow oscillation of the observing intelligence. That is, our sense-perceptive condition, as well as to the relatively superficial significance we normally attach to it. Not much reality is apprehended in our lives. Thus, we are surrounded by movement and restlessness. This is very profound. All motion on the earth is due to the relative slow oscillation of the observing intelligence, our sense-perceptive condition. Right? So there's nothing real here. There's nothing real. There's all these actuality, which is the acting out of motion. Right? An act is one after another. It's just something that's rolling, something that's moving. So that's motion. Right? Actuality is motion, but it is only due to the relatively slow oscillation, the slow oscillation of the observing intelligence. And therefore not much reality is ever apprehended in our lives. And thus we're surrounded by movement and restlessness, and that's the world, the rat race, where everybody's running around, continuously busying from the moment they wake up till the moment they're asleep, from the moment they're born till they're dead, which doesn't really exist in time. But the point is, this is our society, ever faster moving screens and television shows, and nobody can ever really calm down. They try to fill every single minute up, even when they're standing in the line at the bank. Nowadays, everybody's always on their phone, always sending a message, always looking up this Facebook or Twitter or all these things that are going on. It's always surrounded by movement and restlessness. And when people sit down in absolute silence, they go crazy, because the restlessness is so clear to them at that moment that they feel like they're going nuts if they don't start doing something soon again to distract them from the emotional pain body, or whatever you want to call it, this subconscious self that is located down in the stomach area. When reality is faced or comprehended, an experience often associated with death or loss, there is a distinct slowing down, both sensorily and intellectually. A greater significance or inevitability is then seen. Now, this slowing down means actually is this faster oscillation. So it's the stillness causes a faster oscillation. The faster the intelligence is oscillating, the slower the world and all the objects seem, and therefore it looks through. It seems counterintuitive, but speeding up the oscillation means slowing down. Stillness is actually fast oscillation. In our physical or sense-perceptive experience, the stars represent the highest reality. The greater the reality, the faster the observing intelligence has to oscillate, and the slower the stars seem to move. Similarly, the further a man is from perceiving reality in mind or sense, the slower his intelligence oscillates, and the swifter and more numerous are the objects and thoughts that shoot through his mind or space to distract him. Extremely profound statement. I mean, the greater the reality, or similarly, the further a man is from perceiving reality in mind or sense, the slower his intelligence oscillates, right? He doesn't have stillness, and therefore his intelligence oscillates slow. And therefore the swifter and more numerous are the thoughts and objects that shoot through his mind or space to distract him. Extremely profound statement, showing exactly why let's say more ignorant or people that are not that oscillating that fast are unable to grasp higher truths, because whenever there's been spoken about by anybody or anything said, whether it's a quote or a book or a video or anything, or an audio such as the one here, or the book such as Barry Long has written, that the slower oscillating intelligence cannot follow, because all they would ever trigger in them is their own thoughts, their own beliefs. Their own religious and social indoctrination would come up faster than they could ever hold the space, really hold that stillness and oscillate fast enough. For example, an unintelligent person would not be expected to study the cosmic reality of the heavens or of his own mind. If he did glance towards either of these, instead of reality, he would only see the various intellectual inventions that had been formulated of it, or had been formulated for him by his parents and schools and religious institutions and all these kinds of lower oscillating institutions. These concepts, being unreal, would move through his mind at great speed, and being unable to slow them down or stop them with his limited intelligence, he could be said to lack the power of attention or depth. Such people become easily bored and desire continuous movement and stimulation, being addicted to the need for the constant passing of time in the form of objects or thoughts in their minds or in the space around them. See, so this shows that the people who are restless is because their intelligence oscillating very slow, unable to meditate, unable to remain still, unable to look through anything, and usually squander their life in, let's say, superficial, not to be too judgmental, but superficial activities until they die, never having even pondered and wondered about the reality of existence and what it's all about, or let alone engaged and really embody a reality that's higher than that's been taught to them by their schools and society. For an intelligent observer, time, like the imperceptible motion of objects in deep stellar space, is almost non-existent. The reality a man can observe at any time is determined by the stillness of his mind or his space, and this is a measure of his intelligence. An extremely profound statement. I'll probably use that at the head of this as a quote from Barry Long. Beautiful. It says literally, a reality a man can observe at any time is determined by the stillness of his mind or space, and this is a measure of his intelligence. In other words, the stillness which he has, which means that by the degree that his intelligence is oscillating faster and faster, that determines his intelligence. The faster your oscillation, the slower you become, the stiller you are, and therefore the more you can see through all of the formal solidities of belief systems and even form, and see through it, behind it, into a deeper reality which is still, silent, and not moving. Motion, therefore, could be said to be a distractor. Everything that moves and catches your attention means, hey, calm down, keep your attention focused. What we try to say to kids in school when they're distracted easily, well, there is a truth in it, but not for the reasons they're being asked to focus mostly. But the point is that to the degree that your mind is being able to be kept still in silence and stillness, to that degree can your vibration or your intelligence start oscillating faster, vibrating faster. And the faster it vibrates, the swifter it becomes, and the more it looks through the superficial layers of existence, through into the deeper layers of higher realities. And this is the point of life.